Part 38. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mishida. Chapter 372. You should know that when they first entered the war game, many elite lords might only earn a few hundred war coins after winning a game. The consumption of the college search engine and the jump did not exceed 4-digit war coins. Then look at the 8-digit war coins in front of him. Gao Qiang suddenly had the illusion that he had opened a modifier to make money. For an individual player like himself who does not need to cultivate power, can so many war coins really be spent? But it seems that he did not have much to spend money on. Thinking of this, Gao Qiang suddenly felt that the joy of opening the modifier was reduced a lot. The settlement of the war game is still going on. Until the countless land weights are calculated, this settlement is considered to be completely completed. After a sense of pulling up, the picture in front of Gao Qiang has changed. The gloomy demonic domain came into Gao Qiang's eyes. Looking around, there were all kinds of hideous demonized animals wandering around. Doing this again? Gao Qiang cursed in his heart. Sometimes he envied those ordinary lords. Even if they won, they could walk out of the plundered land in just a few steps. Unlike himself, it would take him 3 days and 3 nights to walk through the size of the demon realm. Moreover, there were a lot of threats waiting for him. At this time, the monsters seemed to smell Gao Qiang's breath and turned their heads with scarlet eyes. They wandered in the demon realm for many years and were hunted by the demons. They haven't seen such a weak life for a long time. Feeling the almost imperceptible threat from Gao Qiang, the monsters with a sudden sense of tyranny surrounded him from all directions like jackals. How dare you? At this moment, a powerful pressure fell from the sky, suffocating many monsters. Wu Mei's figure soon appeared in front of Gao Qiang, and the jade seal in her hand emitted a dazzling light. Because the technology tree originally followed the high-level martial arts system. As the power of the Dao dynasty grew stronger, Wu Mei, who was at the top of the pyramid of ministers, naturally became stronger. Now that such a huge demonic domain had descended on the territory of Dao, Wu Mei could actually come directly from the air in a short time. After arriving here, seeing so many demons gathered here, Wu Mei frowned slightly, and then her momentum increased again. The fate of the entire Dao was affected by Wu Mei, and the boundless pressure directly suppressed the surrounding demons into a blood mist. Seeing this, the demons farther away slowly retreated. As the bottom life of the demonic domain, they already had their own way of survival. Provoking the strong who should not be provoked is obviously not in their survival dictionary. After seeing all the demons retreat, Wu Mei quickly appeared in front of Gao Qiang. Is Gao Qing okay? Forget it, it's not suitable to stay here for a long time. Gao Qing, follow me to leave here first. As she said, Wu Mei stepped forward and took Gao Qiang's hand, and fled with Gao Qiang quickly. The huge demon realm flashed in Gao Qiang's eyes, and soon came to the edge. Since Gao Qiang was in the vicinity of the Imperial City when he entered the war game, the appearance of the Imperial City was already in sight. However, in front of the Imperial City, 100,000 Imperial guards had been waiting in formation for a long time. What is this? Gao Qiang looked at Wu Mei in confusion. The demon realm had just appeared, and such a large army could not be gathered in a short time, right? These. Looking at the Imperial guards ready to go in front of her, Wu Mei smiled. Someone told me that Gao Qing might have died in that war game, so I quickly evacuated the people in the Imperial City. I agreed to his proposal. But Gao Qing is my prime minister, and I can't let this account go easily. So, if Gao Qing really can't come back, I want to take the army to see the land of the alien race and explore their dragon pools and tiger dens. Gao Qiang looked at Wu Mei blankly. Time is indeed the best medicine to heal wounds. After not seeing each other for a long time, Wu Mei seems to have come out of Ling Yanning's death and is becoming more and more like an emperor. And this time, there is no demon suppressing tower to take Wu Mei's vitality. The era that belongs to Wu Mei should last for a long, long time. Why, are you looking at me like that? Is there something on my face? Wu Mei saw Gao Jiang looking straight at her and couldn't help but tease her. Then she seemed to think of something. Wu Mei continued to ask, by the way, where is the woman who entered the war game with you? I won't leave her behind, will I? That's right, Wu Mei did it on purpose. She never looked for Ixier, the woman who repeatedly choked her. That bastard must be made to suffer in the demon realm for 3 days and 3 nights. However, when he heard Wu Mei mention Ixier, Gao Jiang shook his head in silence. She can't come back. Seeing this, Wu Mei seemed to realize something, and her momentum suddenly dropped a few points. Sorry. But soon, Wu Mei remembered what she had said before and proposed again, if Gao Qing doesn't want to participate in the war game anymore, how about staying in Dao and being my prime minister from now on? My Dao is now at its peak, are you still worried that I can't protect Gao Qing's safety? Just then, Wen Ziyi's figure slowly walked out from the crowd of thousands of troops below. Now Wen Ziyi looked much more haggard. In fact, he knew about Ixier's death the moment he couldn't contact Ixier. Hearing that Wu Mei was still trying to keep Gao Jiang, Wen Ziyi didn't mean to take Gao Jiang away. Looking at Gao Jiang, after brewing some words, Wen Ziyi slowly said, if you want to stay, stay. I will help you explain to the saints, don't worry about the impact of this matter on you. Seeing that 1 or 2 of them wanted him to stay, Gao Jiang shook his head and declined Wu Mei's kindness again. Your Majesty's kindness is appreciated, but now is not the time for me to retreat. Someone asked me to take care of a fool, and I have a debt to settle in the infinite battlefield. This time, it can be regarded as saying goodbye to His Majesty in person. Wu Mei was silent for a while. Will Gao Qing come back? Looking up and looking directly into Wu Mei's eyes, Gao Jiang answered affirmatively. Yes. I will come back to Dao to retire after I have gone through the infinite battlefield. Your Majesty, please do not despise me then. Infinite battlefield? Wu Mei did not take it seriously after hearing Gao Jiang mention this term several times. She has already obtained a lot of information about the war game. How can the infinite battlefield be so easy to enter? Then remember my promise. If Gao Qing is tired one day, Dao's door is willing to be open to Gao Qing forever. Also, don't make me wait too long. After that, Wu Mei slowly descended with Gao Jiang and finally stood on the ground. As soon as he touched the ground, Gao Jiang walked directly towards Wen Ziyi. Why are you still standing there, you idiot? Aren't you going back? Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 373. Listening to Gao Jiang's words, a strange look flashed across Wen Ziyi's haggard face. No, why are you scolding yourself so well? At this time, looking at Gao Jiang's back, Wu Mei's shouting came again. Gao Qing, do you really not need me to order 100,000 troops to go with you? Since Dao's upgrade, all people within Dao's territory can naturally participate in war games. The 100,000 soldiers Wu Mei mentioned were 100,000 warlords who obeyed the orders of Gao Jiang. No. Gao Jiang waved his hand with his back to Wu Mei. He has no need to rely on the power of others, and he doesn't want to see more people die for him. Let's keep this good intention with Wu Mei. Gao Jiang took a deep look. After confirming that Gao Jiang was not joking, Wenz took out the guide to the saints. Using the road guide, a tunnel to the saints' realm slowly opened. If you are ready, come with me. After saying this, Wenz entered the tunnel and left without looking back. Gao Jiang also followed closely. The tunnel was quickly closed, but Wu Mei's eyes remained where they were, looking at where Gao Jiang had left. His Majesty. At this time, a eunuch slowly walked forward and asked cautiously. The people below have already built what you want to build. Do you want to go take a look? I'll just go there in person. Wu Mei shook her head and disappeared in front of the Forbidden Army. When he appeared again, he was already standing in the royal forbidden area. I saw that the place where the demon suppression tower was originally placed had now been replaced by the statue of Ling Yanning. Wu Mei walked forward slowly, put her hand on the base of the statue, and showed a wry smile. Gao Qiang thought she had given up on Ling Yanning's death. But putting down two words is not as simple as it sounds. Ling is fate really doomed? Looking at the statue in front of her, Wu Mei couldn't help but ask in a low voice. After all, she couldn't hold back and built this statue for Ling Yanning and hid it in the forbidden area to prevent the fragility of her heart from being exposed in front of the officials. But as she saw in the phantom during her last contact with Chai Hong, she stood here alone. The fate that I thought would change did not change at all in the end. After a long moment of silence, Wu Mei turned and left. Now that she is burdened with the fate of the entire Dao, she has less and less time to focus on reminiscing. She must hide her fragility in order to be worthy of Dao's vast national destiny. Sorry Ling I still have too many things to do. In the tunnel formed by the road, Wen Ziyi and Gao Qiang walked one behind the other, spending almost the entire journey in silence. Until Gao Qiang suddenly raised a question. Is it really possible that the grievances between us saints and the elves will never be eased? Hearing these words, Wen's footsteps stopped. Turning to look at Gao Qiang, the first thing he said was not an accusation, but a question. Did something happen? So be it. Gao Qiang nodded and briefly recounted Yan's situation. After understanding the situation, Wen Ziyi shook his head. If it's just because of this kind of thing, I think it shouldn't be possible. It's not that he's indifferent. But including him, the saints were not familiar with Yana at all. Even Wen Ziyi only had 2 meals with Yana at Gao Qiang's place by chance. The reason why Eixier was willing to protect Yana in Heiken was because of Gao Qiang's face, and others did it because of Aixier's face. This is just to protect one person. If we talk about mediating the long-standing grievances with the elves, the gentleness and high strength are not enough. Gao Qiang also understands this. It is impossible, and he will not force Wen Ziyi to do something with him. Just after a second thought, Gao Qiang continued to speak. Can you help me introduce someone to the top leaders of the saints? He is ready. Anyway, for many senior executives, the birth of grudges is nothing more than interests. As long as he can make up enough interests, the so-called grudges will naturally cease to exist. Of course, for a very large force like the saints with many lords, the tens of millions of war coins owned by Gao Qiang may not be enough. But in the future, going to higher level battlefields, the resources obtained can always make up for the losses of the saints, right? Thinking so, Gao Qiang shook his head secretly. For his great-great-great-grandson, he took great pains. However, after hearing Gao Qiang's proposal, Wen Ziyi's expression became increasingly weird. Eventually it all turned into a long sigh. Actually, as the saint's son, you already have this authority. When you return to the saint's realm, I will take you there. By the way, we're here. As he spoke, Wen Ziyi stepped out of the tunnel. Welcome to the world of saints. Whoosh. The moment Wen Ziyi finished speaking, several floating vehicles passed over their heads. Gao Qiang's eyes widened. What came into view at this moment was a city, or rather a world, full of endless science fiction style. From the land beneath your feet to the star rings in the sky, almost every corner has been developed. At the connection of the star ring, countless mechanized ring-shaped devices are imprisoning piece after piece of land. According to Wen Ziyi's explanation, the devices store the lands obtained by the saints through various war games. This is also the way the saints deal with alien lands as a special warplane. After the lands are plundered, they will be locked in the imprisonment equipment set up in advance. Then, the saints will have professionals to explore, analyze, and perform harmless treatment on the lands. Finally, the final destination of the lands will be determined based on the value of the land. Lord Wenzi. At this time, someone on the road seemed to have discovered something and suddenly shouted Wenzi's name. What, Lord Wenzi is here. Just mentioning the name was like poking a hornet's nest, and countless young women came from all directions. At the same time, they were still bursting with exclamations. Oh my God, I haven't seen you for a long time, Lord Wenzi has become more beautiful. Because of the beauty source. Wenzi's face, which had become haggard because of his worry about Avril, was not ugly at all, but showed a different kind of beauty. Oh no, run. As if thinking of something bad, Wenzi hurriedly pulled Gao Qiang away. Gao Qiang, who didn't realize what was happening, could only let Wenzi pull him away. And behind him, many people were still chasing him. Brother Wenzi, wait for me. Oh my God, I didn't expect to be so close to Lord Wenzi, so happy. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 374. It was not until Wenzi called a hovercraft and took the two of them into the air that they were able to shake off the pursuers behind them. Who are those below? Gao Qiang asked with some curiosity. At this moment, Wenzi's originally haggard face was filled with a bit of relief after surviving the disaster. Seeing Gao Qiang asking, Wenzi slowly told the story with lingering fear. In fact, even in a warplane like Saints, not everyone is a lord. Most of them still live like ordinary people. In other words, because it is a plane focused on war, the number of lords consumed needs to be replenished at all times, and there are more ordinary people. Those who can continue to participate in war games as lords are already elites among ordinary people. And the Son of God is even more outstanding among the elites. In the atmosphere of advocating war, the Son of God in the saints' realm naturally becomes the object of pursuit by ordinary people. And in terms of popularity, Wenzi is the best among all the sons of God. He, who has integrated the source of beauty, has become the dream lover of many young women. If he had not escaped successfully just now and was surrounded by the crowd, what would have happened? Wenzi did not dare to think about it. Okay, let's not talk about this kind of thing. Wenzi was obviously embarrassed to continue talking about this topic. So he quickly changed the subject and said, don't you want to meet the leader of the saints? I'll take you there now. As he said that, Wenzi manipulated the panel of the airship, and the airship instantly changed direction and flew straight up. Soon it broke through the planet's atmosphere and brought the two to a hall that looked extremely solemn. This hall floated directly in the vacuum. Therefore, when leaving the airship, Wenzi also took off an oxygen mask and handed it to Gao Qiang. The existence you want to see is in this building. You should know a lot of things after going there, so I won't accompany you in. As he said that, Wenzi made a please gesture to the car door, and at the same time indicated that he was waiting for Gao Qiang in the car. Gao Qiang nodded, opened the car door and got out. At first, Gao Qiang was still a little uncomfortable in the space environment. But the hall in front of him seemed to have some attraction. Even if Gao Qiang floated randomly, he would always flow towards the hall. Boom! The ancient door slowly opened, and behind the door was a dark place that seemed to swallow people. But opening the door is to invite oneself in, isn't it? Seeing that the host was so polite, Gao Qiang didn't intend to be polite. He walked into the hall from the main entrance, and the feeling of gravity returned to Gao Qiang. After his feet stood on the ground again, Gao Qiang began to look around the scene in the hall. The interior looked even older than Gao Qiang imagined. Most places didn't even have light sources, so he could only move forward in the dark. It was hard to imagine that the top leaders of the saints actually lived in such a place. Gao Qiang continued to move forward, enduring the weird feeling in his heart. In the dark corridor, Gao Qiang could only keep company with his heartbeat. Until a faint blue light rose in front of him again. Gao Qiang looked over. It seems to be a pair of eyes. He took a step back subconsciously. The crisp footsteps were particularly harsh in such a quiet environment. No, the people living in this hall should be the high-ranking saints, right? As if he realized something. Gao Qiang stopped his steps and whispered an apology. Then the scene became quiet. After a long time without receiving a response from the other party, Gao Qiang frowned slightly, feeling that the other party seemed to be impolite. If you don't respond, I will assume that you agree to let me go. As he said, Gao Qiang continued to walk forward. It was not until he approached the place where the light was emitted that Gao Qiang could see clearly what it was. A statue emitting strange evil. He gently touched it. In front of Gao Qiang, the attribute interface from the war game appeared. Cursed land, miracle. Introduction: this land breeds countless ownerless curses every time a new statue is born. It can follow the wishes of the visitor and spread a new pain to the world. Effect 1, generates ownerless curse statues with uncertain effects from time to time. When someone touches the ownerless statue, a targeted ownerless curse can be generated according to demand. Effect 2, when the cursed statue is damaged, all cursed objects suffer a fatal injury. Effect 3, when releasing the curse, a gambling agreement will be signed with the cursed land. If the cursed object does not die within the specified time, the close people of the releaser will suffer a fatal disaster. Note: the number of people covered and the intensity of the disaster increase with the increase of the curse intensity. After reading the introduction of the cursed land, Gao Qiang frowned more tightly. From these introductions, as a miracle cursed land, it should actually be the hall he entered. And the evil statue in front of him is just a derivative of the curse. After passing this statue, Gao Qiang continued to move forward. But this time, after a few steps, Gao Qiang completely stopped. Because there was no road in front of him. Countless twisted statues of all sizes filled all areas. The bodies of those statues were huddled together, and their limbs were twisted irregularly. They were far more evil than the statues Gao Qiang had seen before. At this moment, Gao Qiang finally realized that there could not be other humans living in this hall. Without touching the statues, Gao Qiang retreated back the same way. At the door of the hall, Wen Ziyi, wearing an oxygen mask, had been waiting for a long time. Seeing Gao Qiang walk out, he came to meet him head-on. "Did you see everything?" Wen Ziyi asked directly. Gao Qiang nodded, and then asked hesitantly, "The high-level saints you mentioned?" Wen Ziyi pointed behind him, "Get in the car first, I will explain this to you in the car." After entering the airborne car immediately burst out with a strong repulsive force and left the area of the hall. In the car, Wen Ziyi also told Gao Qiang many things that Ai Xie had intended to tell Gao Qiang, but had not had time to say. As Gao Qiang saw, there were no high-level saints as rumored. Perhaps they once existed, such as the group of people who brought the miracle of the cursed land out of the war game. It's just that the people of that era have long passed away one by one under the passage of time. Nowadays, the sons of God are already the absolute top among the saints, and their number is far less rare than Gao Qiang imagined. The saints' territory is very vast, with tens of billions of people living under this collective of saints. Generation after generation, the saints have accumulated countless generations of sons of God. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 375. But not all the sons of God know the true situation of the saints. In order to ensure the stability of the saints, about half of the sons of God are still kept in the dark. Aisieter also learned the truth by chance when she was temporarily promoted to the new Son of God after several sons of God of the new generation were destroyed. And she has told the truth to Wenziyi. If he had not been buried in the last war game, what Wenziyi said now should probably be relayed to Gao Qiang by Aisieter himself. The saints' high-level officials who seem unfathomable in the eyes of outsiders are actually cursed places. In the process of the saints' growth from generation to generation, there are many sons of God who die young, and there will be many situations that the sons of God cannot cope with. But whenever the sons of God die in large numbers and encounter difficulties that they cannot face, a pair of invisible big hands will suddenly appear to smooth out the obstacles on the saints' way forward. Yes, this is the power of the curse. So far, most of the saints still believe in the saints' high-level leaders, but they don't know that there are no strong people at all, only villains who wield the power of curses. Villains. Gao Qiang looked at Wenziyi's eyes. Although Wenziyi said so, it can be seen that he himself does not agree with this title. Behind a bright force, there must always be a small number of people who bear the darkness alone. Although the cursed land looks evil, it protects the young people of the saints from generation to generation. At the same time, it is almost costless. Gao Qiang recalled the attribute interface he saw before. The only drawback of the cursed land is the gambling agreement of Effect 3. If the cursed object cannot be killed within a certain period of time, there will be a fatal curse, which will harm the caster and the people around the caster. This may be the reason why the saints are constantly fighting outside. They use the curse to get a way to solve the problem, but if the problem is not really solved, the curse will sooner or later backfire on themselves. But Gao Qiang soon thought of Effect 2. When the statue is shattered, the cursed object will suffer a fatal injury. Judging from this effect, it should be difficult to trigger the backlash of Effect 3. Unless the cursed object is saved from fatal damage. The calmness of the saints for so many years also proves how low the probability of achieving this method is. However, Gao Qiang suddenly fell silent. Recalling the effect of the cursed land, he finally understood the intention of Wenziyi to bring him here. The war with the Kabbalah Tree of Life can no longer be stopped. The emergence of the reverse source is probably because the Son of God asked for the curse from the cursed land and used means to impose it on the Kabbalah Tree of Life. Once the Kabbalah Tree of Life fails to die, resulting in the failure of the gambling agreement with the cursed land, then the terrible curse will backlash the saints, causing a lot of lives to be destroyed. Seeing that Gao Qiang gradually understood everything, Wenziyi released a more important news. The statue that cursed the Kabbalah Tree of Life has been destroyed. But as you can see, the Kabbalah Tree of Life is still alive, proving that it was saved from the fatal injury. After all, fatal injuries are not instant death injuries, and there is always the possibility of recovery. In other words, the war between the saints and the Kabbalah Tree of Life is now a war with everything at stake. If either side fails, it is doomed to be a situation where all lives are destroyed. If you don't want to, of course you don't have to continue to participate in the actions against the elves. Wenziyi continued to speak. Perhaps for you, staying in the Great Martial Association is a good choice. However, Gao Qiang slowly closed his eyes. His two acquaintances, who had a good relationship, were about to fall into a situation of fighting each other in the future. At this moment, Gao Qiang understood Ye Ying's seemingly innocent words at that time. If there were no war games, then perhaps nothing today would have happened. It seems that there is one more reason for him to go to the infinite battlefield. Knowing that the contradiction between the two sides has reached a point where no method can be reconciled, Gao Qiang slowly sighed. Next, can you take me to see someone else? Who do you want to see again? Wenziyi looked at Gao Qiang with some surprise. He subconsciously thought that Gao Qiang still had illusions about easing the relationship between the saints and the Kabbalah Tree of Life. It's not what you think. Seeing Wenziyi's expression, Gao Qiang knew that he had misunderstood something. The person I want to see is a correspondent nicknamed the Pilgrim. I wonder if you know. Seeing that Gao Qiang was no longer entangled in the impossible idea, Wen Ziyi was also happy to let the topic go. Then he quickly fell into thought. Pilgrim. I seem to have some impression, but she doesn't occupy an important position in the saints. Why are you looking for her? What Wen Ziyi said was true. The status of the correspondent in the saints was equivalent to that of an ordinary office clerk. In most cases, the correspondent is a hard job that works in 2 shifts and all year round. They usually don't have to participate in war games, so they don't have any real power within the saints who are more war-loving. It was Aishir who said that after she was gone, she hoped that we could go meet the pilgrim. She also said that the pilgrim could continue to provide us with intelligence on her behalf, Gao Qiang explained. After hearing Gao Qiang mention Aishir, Wen Ziyi fell silent. Then he did not reply, but silently changed the flight track of the hovercraft. Under Wen Ziyi's intervention, the hovercraft turned into a stream of light and drove towards a towering building on the surface of the planet. The building was surrounded by various suspended security facilities. But because the 2 people sitting in the hovercraft were the sons of saints, they had a smooth journey without any obstruction. The place where Wen Ziyi and Gao Qiang stopped was on the 270th floor of the building. After reaching this height, it was rare to see hovercraft coming and going. Gao Qiang got off the hovercraft with Wen Ziyi, and immediately received a lot of surprised gazes. Ahem. Wen Ziyi coughed awkwardly twice and gave Gao Qiang a look. After motioning Gao Qiang to come over, he approached Gao Qiang and whispered a reminder. Because the correspondents need to be on duty 24 hours a day, the saints provide accommodation services for the correspondents. And in most cases, in order to ensure that they can be on duty quickly, most of the correspondents' accommodation rooms are on the same floor as their workstations. Gao Qiang immediately understood the origin of those strange looks. So, this floor should be a place where only female correspondents are allowed to enter. No wonder there are almost no vehicles parked on this floor. If it weren't for Wen Ziyi and his identity as the Son of God, I'm afraid he would have been called to clear it out long ago. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mishida Di. Chapter 376. However, the female employees did not look at Wen Ziyi with contempt. Rather, they looked like a wolf with eyes that glowed when it saw a sheep. If it were not for working hours, Gao Qiang had no doubt that the female employees would pounce on Wen Ziyi. The source of beauty is really harmful. Unable to bear so many eyes, Wen Ziyi had to pull Gao Qiang and quickly leave the work area and walk towards the living area. Then he turned into a corridor and knocked on one of the doors. Soon, a casual female voice came from behind the door. Who is it? The door opened with a creak. A tall woman, rubbing her sleepy eyes, leaned out from behind the door. She was wearing ill-fitting pajamas, and even half of her shoulders were exposed, revealing her smooth skin. Until she found 2 men standing in front of her. Ah! After a sharp explosion, the woman was about to close the door. Gao Qiang hurriedly called out her name. Lingyanan. Ah! Hearing the other party calling her real name, Lingyanan paused her scream and looked at Gao Qiang in confusion. If she remembered correctly, she should not know Gao Qiang. Who are you? Lingyanan asked hesitantly. Seeing this, Gao Qiang simply found the pilgrim's chat box in the friend interface of the war game and sent a message to him. It's me. Looking at the message sent by Gao Qiang, Lingyanan leaned against the door and frowned. She had contacted so many people. Who is Gao Qiang? Seeing this, Gao Qiang could only continue to say, Aisier asked me to find you. You said it is, Lingyanan raised her eyebrows. As the son of the saint, Aisier's name can be known by just asking, and it is not a secret. It seems that there is no way to continue chatting with her without taking out some killer moves. After thinking for a while, Gao Qiang told him some gossip that Aisier had talked to him before he left. If I'm not mistaken, the underwear you wore today should be blue and white striped, right? As soon as the voice fell, Gao Qiang felt the atmosphere around him stagnate. Wen Ziyi took a few steps back without a sound. Ling Yan'an even pulled the loose sleeves on his shoulders and looked at him with an expression of looking at trash. Gao Qiang could not fail to see what the two were thinking at the moment. No. That's all AI Sie'r told me. At this time, footsteps sounded from all around. It seemed that Ling Yan'an's previous scream had attracted many of the communicators who were resting in the surrounding rooms. Seeing that Gao Qiang still wanted to talk about his gossip. In order to prevent himself from social death, Ling Yan'an hurriedly pulled the two into the room, and then slammed the door shut. After entering the room, Ling Yan'an left the two in the living room and went back to the bedroom to change into an ordinary professional suit. Seeing Ling Yan'an looking at him with an inexplicable look after coming out, Gao Qiang couldn't help asking, "Well, do you need me to prove it again?" "No need." Ling Yan'an smiled and said with gritted teeth. "Now that you're in, does it matter if it's my best friend who called you?" "Right, Lord Saint Gao Qiang." It seems that in the short time in the bedroom, she has confirmed Gao Qiang's identity through her own channels. And finally remembered that Gao Qiang was the guy who was invited by AI Sie'r to become a saint after she met him many years ago. And Wen Ziyi, who was standing next to Gao Qiang, also liked to follow AI Sie'r on weekdays. With these two relationships, it is very likely that the other party was really called by AI Sie'r. Put a pot of tea on the table unhappily. Ling Yan'an sat opposite the two of them. "Tell me, what are the two saints planning to do to meet a small person like me? I don't remember any socializing with you outside of work." "AI Sie'r is dead, do you know?" Gao Qiang said suddenly. Ling Yan'an paused. Then she silently picked up the teapot from the table, filled 3 cups with tea, and took a sip from one cup. "I was wondering why I couldn't contact her these days. It's not much different from what I expected." "You don't look sad." Gao Qiang muttered in his heart. Ling Yan'an's expression and actions did not seem to indicate that she had a very good relationship with AI Sie'r. Facing Gao Qiang's question, Ling Yan'an shook her head. "As a friend, I should be sad about the news of Ixier's death. But Lord Saint, you also know that my job is a communicator. Since I came to this position, death has become commonplace. Take the last time as an example." Ling Yan'an looked up at Gao Qiang and asked with a smile, "Do you remember what happened in the feudal era? Another Lord Saint led many Saints Lords to besiege your territory. During that conflict, you may not have realized that many lords were still in contact with me or my colleagues in the last second before they died." Gao Qiang naturally would not forget what happened at that time. Because of that siege, the Saints not only lost a saint, but also lost a lot of new generation of elite lords. If it weren't for the Saints' mistake first, Ixier would have pulled Gao Qiang into the ranks of the Saints' sons in time. I am afraid that the current relationship between the Saints and Gao Qiang is not much different from the previous Wuji alliance. So, unknowingly, Ling Yan'an had drank all the tea in her hand. If grief were useful, there would be no war in the world. The reality is that sadness has no positive impact other than affecting our productivity. If my follow-up work can provide a little help to avenge Ixier, it will be more meaningful than the temporary crying now. Putting down the teacup, Ling Yan'an straightened her expression. "I think I have a rough guess as to why you two are here. Are you here for the intelligence network left by Asil?" In Ling Yan'an's explanation, Gao Qiang learned that Ixier had actually done many things during his lifetime. For example, on the original intelligence network of the Saints, he continued to personally contact other external forces and expand his contacts. Unlike the college's search engine. Although the human network established by Ixier is not as efficient in obtaining intelligence, but it has unique advantages in other aspects, such as buying or selling rare items, asking for help from others, or offering rewards for things that cannot be found online. Because the advanced intelligence network established by Ahir is also very important to the saints. Therefore, Lingyanan, who was a correspondent and had a good relationship with Ixir before he became the Holy Son, was entrusted to become the second in command of this intelligence network. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 377. Once Ixir dies unexpectedly, then Lingyanan will take over the intelligence network built by Ixir and will not let this intelligence network be abandoned. As for those warlords or other saints who may die tomorrow at any time, they are not within Ixir's consideration. After all, it is still uncertain who can live longer than Ixir. Then that's the case. Ixir asked the two saints to come to me, probably to let the intelligence network she left behind continue to serve you. But in fact, as saints, these are all part of your duties. Lingyanan looked at Gaoqiang and Wenzi, and said word by word, you two don't need to come to my bedroom, just give orders and tell me. This is the girls' dormitory. Ahem. Listening to Lingyanan's words, even Gaoqiang couldn't help coughing twice and turned his head away. Forget it, I'm here now, Lingyanan said helplessly. Anyway, people are sitting here, can she still castrate them with a knife? Then, my two saints, tell me what your goal is now, so that I can make arrangements according to the goal. I want to enter the infinite battlefield, Gaoqiang said without hesitation. Hearing this, Lingyanan's teacup, which she had just raised to her mouth, shook, and the tea went directly into her throat. Cough, cough, cough. After patting her chest heavily, Lingyanan recovered her breath and looked at Gaoqiang with a hard word. The ambition of the saint is really unique. Do you know how difficult this road is? I have nothing to be afraid of, Gaoqiang answered truthfully. Anyway, after entering the war game, the ancestor's influence will naturally help him solve the next trouble. Lingyanan shook her head, I'm not asking if you are afraid. As she spoke, Lingyanan stretched out a hand to Gaoqiang and made a gesture of giving money. Sir, the path should be at level 5 now. Rapidly upgrading to the infinite battlefield is very difficult, but also very simple. But sir, you don't want me, a weak woman, to pay for it, right? After Lingyanan's explanation, Gaoqiang gradually understood what she meant. In fact, this has a lot to do with the high-level battlefield. If the level 5 battlefield is a watershed, then starting from the level 6, the intensity of the battlefield is rising in a straight line. Every win or loss in the level 6 battlefield is an astronomical figure when converted into land weight. Even for a force like the Saints, if they don't know how to measure it well, they may bury the entire planet they live on. At the same time, starting from the level 6 battlefield, the frequency of opening new battlefields has dropped significantly, and you can only rely on luck to match and enter the right battlefield. And the scale of each war game is also very long, and it may take hundreds of years or even hundreds of years to decide the winner after several generations. In this case, the rescue order or similar strange objects gradually became popular in various high-level battlefields. At this time, the role of war coins is reflected. At the 6th level, many lord paths that were originally easy to enter have reached the level of hundreds of millions of values required to advance. At this time, if you can pay enough war coins and contact the appropriate forces through the intelligence network, you can join the war game where they have already established victory. Even if you can add money, you can ask the lords of other forces to escort you and help you improve your lord path. There are many powerful forces on the human side, and the giant forces that have been diverted from the infinite battlefield are not only the academy. As long as enough war coins are paid, even a pig can be promoted to the 9th level path by many lords. After explaining this, Lingyanan continued to show the action of giving money. Now you understand, After reaching the 6th level, even if you just want to choose a suitable battlefield, war coins are indispensable. Contacting, negotiating, and purchasing with other forces, each step requires the consumption of war coins to achieve. The previous intelligence costs were all paid by AI himself. Now that AI has left, the intelligence network will not use the money to reproduce. After listening to Ling Yinen's words, Wen Ziyi turned his head away in embarrassment. He had just suffered a humiliating defeat, how could he get many war coins? What Ling Yinen said did not sound like a small amount. However, Gao Qiang asked directly, how to pay? This is simple. Ling Yinen narrowed his eyes and went back to the bedroom to take out a small machine. This is a human consortium force, and it has made a strange prop that is connected to the war game. Its only function is payment. Press your hand to the center of the machine, and then enter the amount to be paid, and you can complete the payment of war coins. I see Gao Qiang nodded, and then put his hand on it without hesitation. Then he quickly entered a few numbers. Originally, Ling Yinan didn't care much. But watching Gao Qiang's fingers constantly pressing on the 0 button, he was suddenly confused. No, he wouldn't think that 0 means nothing, right? However, the moment Gao Qiang pressed the payment button, Ling Yinan's account instantly received a full 10 million war coins. The huge 8-digit amount made Ling Yinan silent. It's not that she has never seen this amount before. After all, if 10,000 warlords come together, 8-digit war coins can still be collected, and the Saints, as a major force, have more than 7-digit lords. But now Gao Qiang has taken out 8-digit war coins by himself, which is really unprecedented. You want to use all of this as expenses for the intelligence network? Ling Yinan asked in disbelief. Yes, what's wrong? I'll trouble you to take care of Wen Ziyi and me in the future. As he spoke, Gao Qiang transferred another 3 million to Wen Ziyi's panel. AI asked him to take care of Wen Ziyi, the idiot, but Gao Qiang had no idea about rare objects. In this case, it would be better to transfer some money directly and let Wen Ziyi buy it himself. Looking at the 7-digit war coins on his panel, Wen Ziyi also fell into silence. No, aren't we all participating in the same war game? Why did Gao Qiang take out 8 or 7 figures of war coins without blinking an eye when he had just suffered a humiliating defeat? Why? Even if he made the war game stronger, the war game would not give him money, right? Wen Ziyi couldn't figure it out, and Ling Yinan couldn't figure it out either. But after taking a deep breath and making a contribution to global warming, Ling Yinan still accepted this huge sum of money calmly. Next, I will be fully responsible for your intelligence, material preparation, and support work. But in the end, I need you to tell me what kind of battlefield you want to participate in. Gao Qiang thought for a while and gave an answer. Help me find a battlefield in the 6th level battlefield where humans are about to fail or are about to be wiped out. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 378. Are you out of your mind? Ling Yinan said frankly. Aren't serious people paying a lot of war coins to find a more suitable battlefield to upgrade the Lord? Why does Gao Qiang seem to be so eager to die? Why participate in a battlefield that is about to fail? In the battlefield where humans are doomed to fail, most of the areas are basically occupied by foreign races. Maybe they will be caught off guard by foreign races as soon as they enter the battlefield. The 6th level battlefield is not a simple place. Even if you are strong, you will have to die in the northwest without time and space to develop, right? Thinking of this, Ling Yinan's expression became more and more strange. Do you really want to go to that kind of battlefield? If you join that kind of battlefield, there shouldn't be many lords on the saint side who are willing to go with you. She was telling the truth. Compared with the Dao dynasty, the saints still have a high degree of freedom. At least forcing lords to participate in war games is something that the saints rarely do. Most of the time, it is based on the principle of voluntariness. And Gao Qiang just came to the saints. On the one hand, not many people know him, and on the other hand, his prestige is not enough to convince the public. In this case, almost no lords are willing to accompany him to the 6th level battlefield. Wait, you seem to have made a mistake. Gao Qiang interrupted Lingyanan. I mean, I'm going alone. I don't plan to let anyone come with me, including him. While speaking, Gao Qiang pointed at Wen Ziyi. Since Aisier asked him to take good care of him, Gao Qiang naturally would not take this risk with Wen Ziyi. After all, now he knows that a mythical race has completely set its sights on him. Before Gao Qiang enters the infinite battlefield, he doesn't know how many times he will have to suffer. So, Lord Saint is very confident in himself. Listening to Gao Qiang's somewhat arrogant words, Lingyanan propped up her chin and thought for a while. From a rational point of view, she felt that Gao Qiang's ability to say such things may have something to do with not participating in a high-level battlefield. But on the other hand, being able to take out tens of millions of war coins as an individual does prove that Gao Qiang has many extraordinary things. Finally, Lingyanan made up her mind. Okay, I will find such a battlefield for you according to your requirements. But this kind of battlefield is not easy to find, I need some time. If it is a battlefield that is about to win, there are many people who want to go there, and Lingyanan can find a lot of them. But for a battlefield that is about to fail like Gao Qiang asked, she really needs to ask carefully. Looking up at the electronic watch hanging in the living room, Lingyanan stood up. It's time for me to go to work too. I will notify you two in the friend list when I find a war world that meets the requirements. As for now, if the two saints think that my girl's dormitory is worth staying in, it's okay to stay there. The purpose of meeting Lingyanan has been achieved, and Gao Qiang and Wen Ziyi are naturally embarrassed to stay in the girl's dormitory for too long. In the following days, Wen Ziyi arranged Gao Qiang to live in his residence. Because he was inseparable from Aisier before, Wen Ziyi's residence on the saint side was next to Aisier's home. When passing downstairs, Gao Qiang saw two old men greeting Wen Ziyi enthusiastically. Wen Ziyi just responded with a forced smile. Those are Aisier's parents. After returning to his residence, Wen Ziyi glanced at the place downstairs and sighed. Neither he nor Gao Qiang were born and raised by the saints, so naturally they had no relatives here. But Aisier was different. Before being selected as the new generation of the Son of God, Aisier was just an ordinary lord of the saints. She had little money on weekdays and could only live with her parents. After becoming the Son of God, whenever Aisier entered the war game, the two old men would sit downstairs in the morning to bask in the sun, waiting for Aisier's return. They didn't want to miss the opportunity to see their daughter for the first time. And Aisier would come to the two old men to report safety every time the war ended. Unfortunately, the two old men might not be able to wait for Aisier's safety this time. Wen Ziyi didn't plan to tell the two old men downstairs about Aisier's death. Perhaps it would be a good thing for the two old men to let them think that Aisier has been busy with work. I see. After listening to Wen Ziyi's explanation, Gao Qiang felt that the atmosphere was a bit heavy. In the past, under the protection of his ancestors, Gao Qiang rarely felt the cruelty of the war game. But in fact, every lord who died in the war game was a flesh and blood existence. Often a war game would bury about 60% of the lords. Those lords who survived adulthood and still insisted on participating in the war game really entered with the mentality of no tomorrow. Okay. Wen Ziyi didn't seem to want to continue talking about such a heavy topic. Turning his head to Gao Qiang, Wen Ziyi told his plan. Next, I may continue to participate in the war game from level 4 to level 5. If I want to upgrade the path to level 6, I still need a lot of accumulation. As for your wish to enter the infinite battlefield, although I don't know what impact the power of little people like us can have on the infinite battlefield, I still wish you success. With that said, Wen Ziyi stretched out a hand towards Gao Qiang. Gao Qiang shook it back. He knew that these days were also the last days of contact with Wen Ziyi. He has too many reasons to go to the infinite battlefield. After confirming the target, there is no time to stop. Then I wish you and I will be well tomorrow, Gao Qiang said. The next lords who are hostile to him will only become stronger and stronger, and they are far from being comparable to the Infinite League or the Kabbalah Tree of Life. By then, it's not known whether the fallen empire can continue to protect him. Well, I hope you and I will be well tomorrow. Wenz tried his best to put away the haggard look on his face and responded with a smile. Like Gao Qiang, he never stopped to enjoy life. The weak have the difficulties of the weak, and the strong naturally have the sorrows of the strong. Even if it's not for humans or saints, but just to protect the small family that Asil used to be, he must continue to fight. About half a month had passed when Gao Qiang received news from Lingyanan again. During this period, Wen Ziyi participated in new battlefields early. However, the saint's veteran son is in charge, as well as Lingyanan's exclusive supply of advanced intelligence network. Unless anything unexpected happens, Gao Qiang doesn't have to worry about the situation at Wen's place. The most important thing is that Lingyanan has completed the search for battlefields with high demand. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 379. Pilgrim, regarding the battlefield you requested, we have found a suitable place here. The human forces in that battlefield are expected to be completely defeated within a year. In addition, please come to Building 1 of Qianyuan Street tomorrow. It is related to this war game. I have to hand over some things to you in person. Building 1 of Qianyuan Street is actually the place where Wen Ziyi took Gao Qiang to find Lingyanan. At Lingyanan's repeated request, Gao Qiang came to the downstairs of Building 1 early the next morning. But it is obvious that Lingyanan got up earlier. She stood at the door of the building with a suitcase, looking like she had been waiting for Gao Qiang for a long time. After seeing Gao Qiang's figure, she hurried to meet him. At the same time, she handed over the box in her hand. Since you are so confident in your strength, I think you should be able to use these strange objects. After the box was opened, almost all the strange objects were revealed. It included the request for battle that Gao Qiang had used before, as well as small props such as the mobilization order to reduce war weariness and the recruitment order to improve the quality of recruiting people. In addition, there are also dozens of items such as the request for assistance order, which Gao Qiang has only heard of. Because each lord can bring a limited number of strange items in a single war game. In this box of strange items, the value of the request for assistance alone exceeded 500,000 war coins, and the overall value exceeded 1 million. Lingyanan also had her own considerations for handing these things over to Gao Qiang. She felt that something was wrong with the battlefield she had found this time. But she couldn't tell what was wrong. To be on the safe side, these strange items were handed over to Gao Qiang, so that even if the human force had unexpected changes, Lingyanan could quickly take over. As long as Gao Qiang released the request for assistance order, Lingyanan could find some lords who were strong enough to help Gao Qiang through a bounty. After all, in addition to the million war coins used to buy this box of strange items, Gao Qiang still had a lot of war coins with Lingyanan. This money is enough to invite some special lords. Quietly waiting for Gao Qiang to accept all the strange objects, Lingyanan asked, "Are you ready?" Gao Qiang nodded. "In that case, please get in the car. As for the intelligence of this battlefield, I will pass it to you through the friend list. And in this war game, I will be your intelligence agent and be fully responsible for the task of connecting with your intelligence." The Saints naturally also have a venue specially prepared for war games, and will not let Gao Qiang enter the game in the city. After sending Gao Qiang to the hover car, Lingyanan turned around and returned to the communicator's workplace without looking back. At the same time, Gao Qiang also received an encrypted link in his friend panel. Pilgrim, this is the coordinates of the rescue order we purchased from the Bioconsortium. It can only be used by one person. When sending this message to Gao Qiang, Ling Yan'an still frowned slightly. She actually didn't understand why the other party did this. Normally, although one rescue order is required for each rescue, there is no upper limit on the number of reinforcements that can be drawn at a time. After the means of encryption are used, it means that this coordinate cannot be used by too many people. If it is a battlefield where the victory is already determined, it is understandable to do so. But in this battlefield where humans are about to fail, the Bioconsortium is the main victim. Isn't it better to ask for more reinforcements? At this time, they still need to set encryption and limit the number of reinforcements. Could it be that they are really crazy about money? If possible, Ling Yan'an really doesn't want to contact this kind of force whose brain may have been soaked in water. There is no way. The frequency of the 6th level battlefield is not high, and the time span of the battlefield is too large. This is the only battlefield that meets the high strength requirements recently. By the way, I forgot to tell you that this battlefield is called 1000 Star Era. When we open our eyes and look at the starry sky above our heads, the stars will surely shine for us. Welcome to 1000 Star Era. Just like the previous two times, when Gao Qiang entered the war game, he first faced the opening scene of an era. In the picture, there was only a small star system at the beginning. There were only a few planets in this star system, which seemed ordinary in the universe. Until it moved in the universe, chased another star system at a faster speed, and collided directly with another star system. This was a disaster that was enough to destroy two star systems. But the universe is so big, and there will always be exceptions in such a wide space. Instead of being destroyed, the two star systems merged together under mutual gravity to form a special binary star system. And this is not over yet. With the birth of the binary star system, the movement speed of the star system is still increasing, until it swallowed star systems one by one. Gradually, this originally ordinary star system, after pulling countless star systems, miraculously formed a special 1000 star system. Dozens of stars and thousands of planets moved irregularly in the galaxy, but were pulled by their own gravity and would not completely break away. Another thing that we have to sigh about is that life is always tenacious. In such a catastrophic environment, the buds of civilization still appear on each planet. They developed and grew until they set their sights on the universe. The curtain of the 1000 Stars era was officially opened. The scene ended, and Gao Qiang appeared in front of the opening selection stage. At the same time, Ling Yan'an also sent the reason why humans were in a desperate situation in this war. In addition to the human forces headed by the Bio group, there were dozens of forces of different races in this war. But without exception, except for the Bio group that was about to be completely destroyed, all other races had already died out. Just because in this war game, they had a terrible opponent. Zerg. The environment in the 1000 Stars era was extremely harsh. It can be said that it was still ice and snow in the last second, and it might be 1,000 miles of barren land in the next second. In the 6th level battlefield, such a harsh battlefield environment is rare. Even the lords of most races were directly eliminated by the harsh environment before entering the stage of total war. The remaining races also need to focus most of their energy on the technology tree related to survival. This will greatly affect their war potential. After all, they have already used up all their strength just to survive. However, the Zerg is different. In terms of individual combat power and group combat power, the Zerg is not the most powerful existence in this war game. But they have one of the best adaptability. With continuous evolution, the Zerg's adaptive survival temperature has reached -200 degrees and +500 degrees. This means that most of the harsh environments in the 1000 Stars era will not be able to effectively kill Zerg units. With this advantage, the Zerg is even more ahead in development. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 380. When most of the lords of other races had just recovered from the disastrous environment, the Zerg had already figured out the technology of biological warships and began to colonize unknown planets on a large scale to expand their living space. When one planet after another was occupied by the Zerg and turned into the Zerg's hatching nest, it was too late for other lords to catch up with the progress. Pilgrim, this is why humans are about to fail in this war game. Nature has never defeated the Zerg, and in this battlefield dominated by environmental disasters, the Zerg's inherent advantages are too great. The Bioconsortium is also trapped in this war game. Too many lords are not realistic to get out, otherwise they should have given up this battlefield long ago. Gao Qiang just sent a message back to Lingyanen's pessimistic view. Don't panic, you will win. After replying, Gao Qiang turned his eyes to the panel in front of him. Every time before entering a war game, he would stay for a long time because of his miracle path. Your miracle talent, interference has been triggered. Please select up to 3 targets for intervention. This time, Gao Qiang did not plan to launch interference. Because through Lingyanen's intelligence, Gao Qiang learned that there were no powerful characters in the Zerg this time. The reason why he was able to achieve the current victory was completely due to the dividends of the times. Since the Zerg completely relied on the advantage of development, Gao Qiang naturally could not give the other party 3 times the scientific research effect to help the other party speed up its development. Your miracle talent, rereading, has been triggered. Do you want to expand the upper limit of the technology tree in this war game? Note, after choosing to trigger the rereading, War of Vigilance will no longer be a reasonable reason for war. Yes. Unlike interference, rereading is one of Gao Qiang's most core talents at present. With the talent of rereading, even if a lord breaks through the upper limit of the era by means, Gao Qiang will not fall into a passive situation. Your miracle talent, Forged Edict, has been triggered, and you get 10 accumulated momentum marks. After all the miracle effects have been triggered once, Gao Qiang also ended the opening stage. Unlike before, Gao Qiang did not feel a clear sense of falling when he joined the battlefield in the 6th level battlefield. Instead, an inexplicable force pulled Gao Qiang and made him fly towards a corner of the galaxy. In this corner, there is a special planet that is not affected by external forces and rotates independently. Wall of size. Citizens, 120.8 million people. Combat units, Ancient Cruiser X-300, Ancient Caretaker X-30, Ancient Mothership X-1. Defense buildings, Supreme Command, Garden Outpost X-30. Production buildings, none. Miracle Building, Universal Ideal City. The number of citizens this time has reached an unprecedented level, 100 million people. Looking at the panel in front of him, Gao Qiang can no longer describe his surprise. From the experience of so many war games before, he did not expect the number of citizens in his hands to reach what extent. And this time, it really gave him a big surprise. With a population that is enough to cover an entire small planet, Gao Qiang could hardly imagine what kind of terrifying power he would burst out after awakening this time. After a short period of thinking, Gao Qiang's feet had touched the ground again. But after looking at the surrounding environment, Gao Qiang found that he did not land inside the planet, but directly came to the space station above the planet. Lord! Zhulogo's voice came from behind Gao Qiang. Gao Qiang turned around quickly, but saw Zhulogo standing there alone. Gao Qiang's mood suddenly dropped a little. Is Shasha not here? Shasha is here. After reacting to what Zhulogo had just said, Gao Qiang raised his head suddenly, and emotions of joy and surprise emerged one after another. Zhulogo tilted his head, as if he was a little puzzled as to why Gao Qiang asked such a question. Lord, do you think that with Shasha's personality, she will come to pick you up? This sentence is also true. Gao Qiang scratched his nose awkwardly. Recalling the previous few times, with Sasha's personality, she would probably forget about herself when she saw something delicious. However, Gao Qiang quickly brought the topic back. Where is Sasha? Zhuo shrugged helplessly. Alas, if the Lord wants to see Sasha so much, I will take you to find her. That big foodie is living a good life. After that, Zhuo quickly took Gao Qiang around the space station and came to a closed alloy door. Zhuo put his palm on it, and after a scan, the alloy door slid open. The room was pitch black. A girl could be vaguely seen playing games in front of a constantly flashing screen. Sasha, Gao Qiang asked in confusion. No, judging from this figure, although familiar, it doesn't look like it. Huh. After hearing the voice, the figure playing the game turned around and let Gao Qiang see her face. Is it, Huan's hero? Hey, long time no see, Lord. Huan's hero paused the game and snapped her fingers, and the whole room lit up instantly. It was then that Gao Qiang noticed that Sasha was leaning on the sofa next to the game console, chewing her potato chips. Seeing Gao Qiang looking over, Sasha reluctantly said hello. It's our first meeting, Morning Lord. After thinking about it, Sasha held the potato chips in her hands and hid them behind her back. I won't feed you. However, Gao Qiang's attention was not here, but on what Sasha said. First meeting? Sasha doesn't remember herself? Boom. At this moment, Zhuo's fist fell on Sasha's forehead. Ouch. Rubbing her knocked head, Sasha looked at Zhuo with tears in her eyes. Sister Chef, what are you doing? Who told you not to speak properly? Zhuo rolled his eyes and said, get rid of the bad water in your mind. There is so much bad water in your head that you can almost use it to make soup. Hey, the Lord didn't say anything. Sasha chuckled, but still walked to Gao Qiang and handed over the potato chips in her hand. No, I'll give it to you. Sasha was just joking. Gao Qiang was silent for a moment, then hugged Sasha into his arms. Lord, what are you doing? Sasha pretended to struggle and secretly poured all the potato chips in the bag into her mouth. Until Gao Qiang let Sasha go. She just dumped the bag of potato chips in her hand and said with some pity, it turns out that they are all eaten, so there is nothing for the Lord to eat. Gao Qiang remained silent. He just looked at the lively Sasha in front of him, and then looked at Zhuo, as if he didn't understand why Sasha could still stand here intact. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 381. But Zhuo didn't mean to explain. He just reached out and grabbed Sasha's collar, lifted Sasha up in his hand, and asked Gao Qiang. Since Sasha has also seen it, do you need me to take the master to visit the main control room of the space station? By the way, Sasha will come too. Ah! Hearing the word main control room, Sasha's face instantly turned bitter, and she looked reluctant to go. Sister Zhuo, why don't you lead the master there yourself? Seeing Sasha's unwilling look, Zhuo reached out to Huan's hero who was standing in front of the game console. Huan's hero understood and opened the cabinet under the game console, revealing all kinds of snacks hidden in the cabinet. If you don't come with me, I will confiscate these snacks without hesitation. Zhuo looked at Sasha with a smile. Seeing this, Sasha's face drooped. I'll go. After getting a satisfactory answer, Zhuo turned to look at Gao Qiang. So what does the Lord mean? I'll go and take a look, Gao Qiang responded. Anyway, we have just entered this war game. Even if there is only one microplanet in the territory, Gao Qiang alone can't walk through it in a short time. There is no harm in following Zhuo to get familiar with the territory. Then come with me. Zhulo took Gao Qiang away, and Huan's hero also turned off the lights in the room, leaving only the screen of the game console flashing. Walking in the corridor of the space station. Because a matter of concern has been resolved, Gao Qiang finally has the mood to observe the situation outside the window. Then, he said sincerely, "It's beautiful. Thousands of planets gather in the same galaxy. At such a close distance, you can see many planets interweaving back and forth in a special trajectory. It is also a different kind of wonder. Is it beautiful?" Sasha looked at the universe outside the corridor, and seemed to have no idea of the beauty Gao Qiang was talking about. "Well, it can't be eaten." Ahem. Listening to Sasha's words, Gao Qiang choked on his saliva. Obviously, a planet that can't be eaten is definitely not beautiful in Sasha's mouth. At this time, Zhulo's voice came from the other side, "Maybe it's a beautiful view for us. But for most new civilizations, this beautiful view is simply a nightmare." Zhulo pointed to a barren planet close to a star in the field of vision, and continued, "According to the distance between this planet and the star, the surface temperature should be close to 400 degrees Celsius. Don't talk about life forms, many machines are likely to be scrapped at this temperature. Then look where." Zhulo pointed to another planet far away from the star. The planet was already covered with frost, and it didn't look like a place where civilization could survive. This stable yet chaotic environment, even our ancestors only had the current stable life after they were independent of the thousand stars' orbit. Chatting all the way, Zhulo brought Gao Qiang and Jasha to the main control room. After confirming the identity information, the door of the main control room opened. A thick white smoke floated out from the crack of the main control room. Instantly, the whole corridor was shrouded in mist, as if placed in a fairyland. Just smelling the pungent smell of alcohol mixed in the white smoke, Gao Qiang almost thought that something had happened in the main control room of the space station. Until the door was completely opened, a decadent person was exposed to everyone. It was a well-dressed man wearing a dark blue navy uniform, but at this moment, he was lying in front of the console in the main control room with a full body of alcohol, and there were scattered wine bottles under his feet. Shasha kept fanning her nose and took 2 steps back behind Gao Qiang. Although she likes food and drinks, she still cannot appreciate the kind of trashy strong liquor designed only for blackouts. Oh, right. After seeing the man, Zhulo seemed to remember something and clapped his hands in sudden realization. "I forgot to tell the Lord that someone is waiting for the Lord in the main control room." As he said that, Zhulo walked forward and shook the man's body fiercely. "Weiyan, wake up, don't sleep. This is the first time I see the Lord, how drunk you are." Snap. Zhulo's hand was opened by the drowsy Weiyan. At this moment, Weiyan was still lying on the table, not quite sober. "Don't move me, I can drink more. Drinking 10,000 cups is not enough." Without saying a few words, Weiyan fell back. At this moment, Baihexio's figure appeared from the control room in small steps. He held a basin of ice in his hand and poured it on Weiyan without hesitation, soaking Weiyan's military uniform. Who touched me?" Weiyan shuddered violently and finally woke up from his drunken state. The first thing he saw when he woke up was Baihexio's casual expression of helpless shrug. "You asked me to wake you up after you got drunk, and the Lord has come, didn't you notice it?" As he said that, Baihexio looked at Gao Qiang deeply, then threw the basin in his hand, and the whole person quickly disappeared in the main control room. Only then did Weiyan react, and his eyes swept through the people present. Over Zhulo and Jasha, it was placed directly on Gao Qiang. "You are, Lord," Weiyan asked hesitantly, straightening his collar. Gao Qiang also opened Weiyan's panel at this moment. Weiyan. Occupation, Supreme Commander, Fallen. Supreme Commander, Fallen. Introduction, he is extremely keen on war, his heart is as cold as a butcher on an assembly line, but he was born in the wrong era, an era without war. Features, lock, 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 lock. Isn't this just a useless person? Looking at Weiyan, whose panel was all locked, Gao Qiang smiled. It's really rare to see people who are worse than himself. However, Weiyan's next sentence made Gao Qiang put away his smile. I heard that you are quite hated. Weiyan looked at Gao Qiang, as if he wanted to see some kind of affirmative answer from Gao Qiang's eyes. At the same time, he patted his chest and made a promise to Gao Qiang. Don't worry, I love to resolve grudges, I think we will be a perfect match. Stop, stop, stop. Gao Qiang had to interrupt Weiyan's chatter. He didn't know how Weiyan saw that he was hated, and he didn't know why he wanted to be hated so much. But he knew that if Weiyan continued to talk like this, he would probably bow to the heaven and earth on the spot. He was not interested in such a decadent officer, not to mention that he was a man.